She's a real yacht girl, always fishing for fame. That's what Prince Andrew reportedly said about Meghan Markle, and now the palace walls are shaking. In a stunning private moment that has now gone public, Prince Andrew, embroiled in scandals of his own, is accused of dropping one of the most cutting remarks ever aimed at Meghan Markle. His words weren't just petty, they hinted at a secret world of elite parties, luxury yachts, and calculated social climbing. Why would Andrew risk everything by saying this? What does he know that the public doesn't? And is this accusation part of a bigger royal revenge? Stay with us as we unravel a tale of hidden pasts, shattered trust, and the brutal clash between royalty and reputation. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. The soft rustle of the wind across the Thames. A calm London skyline. Then boom. The tabloid headlines erupt like a lightning bolt across Buckingham Palace's quiet walls. Prince Andrew calls Meghan Markle a real yacht girl. Those words were not spoken during a scripted television interview or in a private royal letter. They came, allegedly, during an unscripted and bitter exchange leaked from a source deep within the walls of Windsor. The phrase wasn't just insulting, it was explosive. It lit up the media like dry tinder to a flame. Whispers turned to speculation. Speculation turned to rumors. And now, those rumors have burst into full-blown scandal. For years, Meghan Markle has danced under the glare of the spotlight. Her rise from Hollywood actress to Duchess of Sussex chronicled like a modern-day fairy tale. But what if the story isn't as pure as it seems? What if the path to royalty was paved not just with red carpets and charm, but with something darker, more calculated? What if there were truths buried beneath glamour and rehearsed empathy, behind carefully managed interviews and paparazzi flashes? Today, we confront a royal earthquake, one not created by politics or divorce, but by one of the monarchy's most disgraced and scandal-ridden figures, Prince Andrew. A man who knows what it's like to be chewed up by the press and spit out by the court of public opinion. And yet, this time, he isn't the one under fire. He's doing the firing. And his target? Meghan Markle. This isn't just gossip. It's something deeper, something eerily personal. Andrew's choice of words, "You're a real yacht girl," carry loaded meaning. They allude to a world of private luxury vessels, discreet companionship, and women courted by powerful men in elite waters. It's a phrase that evokes images not fit for a Disney princess, but for a high society expose. And in Andrew's world, it's not just an insult, it's an accusation. The term yacht girl has long followed certain women in the industry, models, influencers, actresses whose careers suddenly skyrocketed after exotic trips with billionaires. It's a label whispered at fashion parties and royal galas alike. But now it has found its way into the heart of Britain's most famous and infamous family. So why now? Why would Prince Andrew, a man who has spent the last few years shrouded in disgrace over his ties to Jeffrey Epstein, suddenly come out swinging against Meghan Markle? And more importantly, why are people taking his words seriously? Perhaps it's because, for the first time in years, the monarchy itself seems at a crossroads. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have distanced themselves from royal duties, relocated to America, and become media moguls in their own right. Meanwhile, the rest of the royal family has remained tight-lipped, dignified, silent, and traditional. But Andrew's statement broke that silence, pierced it like a dagger, and reignited a fire that has long simmered just beneath the surface. This video aims to dive deep into the undercurrents of that statement. We're not here to regurgitate headlines. We're here to peel back the layers and ask the hard questions. What did Prince Andrew mean, really? Is there truth to the claims of Meghan's past being linked to yacht culture and elite social circles? How does this allegation connect to her rapid climb up the social ladder, her marriage to Prince Harry, and the couple's ultimate break from the monarchy? We'll also examine why Andrew, of all people, is resurfacing with such a provocative narrative. Is he seeking redemption, distraction, or revenge? Is this a desperate man lashing out? Or does he know something the rest of us don't? And most importantly, we'll look at Meghan's side. Her defenders say she's been relentlessly targeted since day one. By the tabloids, the royals, and now even by a disgraced family member trying to claw his way back into relevance. So who's right? Who's telling the truth? And who benefits most from the chaos? The stakes couldn't be higher. At the heart of this story is not just Meghan Markle, not just Prince Andrew, but the integrity and image of the royal family itself. As the crown attempts to modernize and stabilize, another storm brews, one fed not by public speeches or royal protocols, but by backroom whispers and scandalous insinuations. By the end of this investigation, you'll not only understand the depth of Andrew's bombshell accusation, you'll see how it fits into a much larger tapestry of secrets, silence, and royal power struggles. You'll hear from insiders, examine leaked communications, and walk through the chilling timeline of events that may reveal how far this scandal really stretches. So, whether you're a critic of the monarchy, a defender of Meghan, or just someone who wants to get to the truth behind one of the most sensational claims in royal history, stay with us. Because once we dive in, there's no turning back. Let's begin with what Andrew said and why it has everyone's jaw on the floor. It was an intimate setting, not a press conference, not a BBC interview. According to the leaked account, the statement happened at a private royal function where the tension was reportedly unbearable. Andrew, cornered by a question about Meghan, scoffed, rolled his eyes, and said it. She's got the nature of a real yacht girl, always fishing for the next big catch. I've seen those types. You don't forget them. Those in the room reportedly froze. The words weren't just an insult. They were a statement of classification. Andrew, with his decades of experience in elite circles, essentially labeled Meghan as one of them. And when pressed later on whether he meant what people thought he meant, he reportedly smirked and added, "She's not exactly the shy type, is she?" Fame feeds her like oxygen. No one else has publicly confirmed these quotes, of course. But silence speaks volumes. Neither Buckingham Palace nor Harry himself has released a denial. Not yet. Now think about that. In the royal world, silence often equals consent. When an allegation is so absurd it doesn't deserve response, the palace swiftly kills the rumor. But when the truth stings, when it strikes a little too close to reality, there's a different strategy: strategic silence. So why haven't they denied this yet? Could it be that behind the glamour, behind the speeches, behind the photo ops and podcast episodes, there's a story Meghan's team desperately doesn't want unearthed? Some former insiders say yes. They point to her aggressive image management, the ceaseless litigation against British tabloids, the press blackouts, and the removal of old online photos. One source even claimed, it's not that Meghan has skeletons in her closet. It's that she's demolished the closet entirely and built a PR castle over the ruins. But Andrew, always reckless, has no filter left. Stripped of royal roles, exiled from public favor, he has little to lose and everything to gain by re-entering the royal narrative. By painting Meghan as a manipulator, he may be attempting to realign himself with the crown, to redirect the royal family's ire away from himself and onto a new villain. It's a risky strategy, but one that's worked in power struggles before. That leaves us with a volatile mix: a fallen prince desperate for redemption, a duchess trying to control her public image, and a monarchy caught in the middle of the crossfire. This is not just a war of words. It's a battle of legacies, of who gets to shape the future of the royal narrative, and of whether past secrets, no matter how deeply buried, can truly stay hidden in the age of leaks, clicks, and instant exposure. Over the next several chapters, we will unfold a story that's part psychological thriller, part elite exposé, and part royal reckoning. A story full of contradictions, betrayals, and chilling clarity. So, hold on. Because everything you thought you knew about Meghan Markle and her journey to royalty may be rewritten by the time we reach the end. Let's step aboard the story and set sail into the truth. Long before the word influencer became currency in today's digital world, there was a different label whispered in the luxury circles of the world's ultra-rich. A label that existed quietly, almost conspiratorially, known only to those who either benefited from it or were burned by it. That term is yacht girl. To understand the weight of Prince Andrew's alleged accusation against Meghan Markle, we must first unravel what it truly means to be labeled a yacht girl. It's not simply about boarding yachts or taking sun-drenched photos on Mediterranean decks. It's about what happens behind those velvet ropes, in hidden waters away from the public eye. It's about powerful men, hungry reputations, image control, and ambition cloaked in designer swimsuits and diamond-studded smiles. The origins of yacht girl culture can be traced back decades, though the phenomenon gained traction in the 1990s and 2000s as superyachts became status symbols for the world's billionaires. These lavish floating palaces, moored in Monaco, St. Bart's, Dubai, and Ibiza, were more than just luxury toys. They were playgrounds, negotiation rooms, and audition stages rolled into one. For young models, actresses, and aspiring socialites with the right connections or the right looks. Getting invited aboard was a ticket into elite society. But the ticket came with unspoken terms. While not all women aboard these vessels were involved in scandalous activity, the underlying system became clear to insiders. Yacht girls were often recruited through modeling agencies, fashion events, or socialite parties. They were young, beautiful, ambitious, and frequently from modest backgrounds. In exchange for their company, they were granted access to luxury vacations, expensive gifts, and networking opportunities that could open doors that would otherwise remain firmly closed. In this world, yacht girls weren't just party companions, they were investments. They were trained to be agreeable, glamorous, and above all, discreet. Many signed non-disclosure agreements before ever stepping aboard. In return, their presence added allure to the gatherings, helping moguls and royalty alike maintain an air of charm and virility. The most successful yacht girls often transitioned into celebrity circles, brand sponsorships, or relationships with powerful men, sometimes even marriage. This lifestyle wasn't often acknowledged in public, but the pattern was unmistakable to those familiar with the game. Behind the flashing cameras at Cannes or the hushed corridors of Monte Carlo hotels, deals were made, silent, strategic exchanges that blended sex appeal with ambition. Names whispered in connection to the scene included actresses, reality stars, and fashion icons. Some graduated from it. Others were swallowed whole. But one fact remained constant. Once the yacht girl label was attached, whether fairly or not, it never fully disappeared. It lingered like a ghost in high-definition photos, behind every sudden career leap, every ambiguous vacation snapshot. Now, what makes this term especially charged is that it isn't always literal. Not every so-called yacht girl has set foot on a luxury yacht. Sometimes the term is applied more figuratively, to describe a woman perceived as social climbing, transactional in her relationships, and using her beauty and charm to manipulate access to power. And that's where the controversy begins. Critics argue the label is misogynistic, another way of undermining ambitious women by reducing their success to sex and seduction. Supporters of the term insist it exposes a very real, very calculated phenomenon that exploits both beauty and wealth in a transactional culture of secrecy. So where does Meghan Markle fit in? On the surface, she doesn't. A well-spoken Northwestern graduate, she was a suitcase girl on Deal or No Deal before landing her most famous role on the legal drama Suits. She's been described as intelligent, poised, and passionate about social issues. And yet, for years, there have been whispers that her rise wasn't purely meritocratic. That before Suits, there were elite parties, wealthy benefactors, and a quiet strategy to be seen in the right places at the right time. Fueling these rumors are a series of photos and online postings that, while not scandalous on their own, take on new meaning when viewed through the yacht girl lens. Pictures of Meghan in Monaco. Social media posts showing her aboard boats in the Mediterranean. Paparazzi snaps from elite events she attended despite having a relatively low public profile at the time. Nothing criminal, nothing confirmatory, but enough to raise eyebrows among those already skeptical of her narrative. Biographers such as Tom Bower and Lady Colin Campbell have alluded to these years with carefully chosen language, never fully confirming, but never denying, the allegations. According to some insiders, Meghan's pre-royal lifestyle included friendships with club promoters, fashion insiders, and wealthy foreign figures. Her networking skills, by all accounts, were exceptional. She knew how to enter a room, make an impression, and plant the seeds of opportunity. And it worked. Her marriage to Prince Harry catapulted her from TV actress to global icon. But for some, that trajectory felt too convenient, too curated. And the label, Yacht Girl, began to surface in corners of the internet, then mainstream tabloid headlines, and now, most explosively, allegedly from the lips of Prince Andrew himself. But why would Andrew, of all people, use such a term? After all, he's no stranger to yacht culture. He's been photographed with models aboard yachts linked to Jeffrey Epstein and other billionaires. He has seen firsthand how those scenes operate and the types of women who frequent them. His familiarity with that world gives his words a chilling weight. When he allegedly calls Meghan a real yacht girl, he isn't speculating. He's drawing from experience. Some argue this makes his statement all the more scandalous. Others say it's hypocritical. But what's certain is that the label, in this context, wasn't just meant to insult. It was meant to expose, or at least cast doubt on, the legitimacy of Meghan's royal journey. In the post-#MeToo era, conversations around power, consent, and image have become more complex than ever. To some, Meghan is a victim of institutionalized misogyny, smeared with baseless rumors because she dared to marry into a historically white, conservative monarchy as a mixed-race, divorced American actress. To others, she's a master manipulator, someone who understood how to move up the ladder, playing each role perfectly to secure her place in the royal spotlight. The truth likely lives somewhere between those extremes. Yacht girl culture, by design, thrives in ambiguity. It exists in shadows, behind NDAs and private Instagram accounts, in whispered stories that never make it to court or press. And that's what makes it so dangerous and so effective as a weapon. When a figure as polarizing as Prince Andrew wields that term, it doesn't just create a media storm. It raises questions that can't be easily answered because they rely on implication, not proof. In a world where image is everything, mere association with the term can be enough to destroy reputations, cast doubt, and shift public opinion. And Meghan knows this. Her entire media strategy since marrying Harry has been about controlling the narrative. She's been selective with interviews, ruthless in lawsuits, and relentless in her public positioning. Every photo, every story, every project is carefully calibrated to reinforce the image of a misunderstood outsider, bullied by the press and silenced by the palace. But this yacht girl accusation is different. It's not coming from a tabloid editor or anonymous Reddit user. It's reportedly coming from someone who lived within the very world Meghan now inhabits. A man whose own scandals have made him radioactive, but whose proximity to the truth cannot be ignored. It is, in essence, an insider throwing a grenade into the inner circle. And whether you believe it or not, the impact is undeniable. So, as we continue forward, we will explore how this label began to follow Meghan, how it ties into her controversial relationship with Prince Harry, and how it plays into the larger narrative of ambition, exposure, and royal betrayal. Because if there's one thing yacht girl culture teaches us, it's this: the higher the stakes, the more dangerous the game becomes. And in the royal court, everyone is watching. To truly understand Meghan Markle's rise and the controversy surrounding it, we must step back and peel away the layers of polished press statements, scripted documentaries, and choreographed red carpet appearances. We need to return to the years before the royal wedding, before Frogmore Cottage, before the palace press releases and international headlines. Back to when Meghan Markle was just another actress in a sea of thousands, trying to claw her way up in a cutthroat industry that rewards charm, beauty, and persistence, but often punishes ambition in women. Born Rachel Meghan Markle on August 4, 1981, in Los Angeles, California, Meghan grew up in the heart of the entertainment world. Her father, Thomas Markle Sr., was a lighting director for TV shows, which afforded her some early exposure to life behind the scenes. Her mother, Doria Ragland, a yoga instructor and social worker, introduced her to wellness culture and spirituality, elements that would later become part of her carefully curated public image. But growing up biracial in a still highly segregated Hollywood system wasn't easy. Meghan has spoken publicly about feeling like she didn't fit into a box, too light-skinned to be seen as black by some, and too visibly different to be accepted as white by others. This duality gave her a chameleon-like ability to adapt to different social settings, a skill she later used to great effect in both Hollywood and royal circles. After high school, she attended Northwestern University, where she double-majored in theater and international studies. A smart move. She was clearly preparing for more than just a life on stage or screen. She wanted access to diplomacy, public platforms, and global visibility. While there, she interned at the U.S. Embassy in Buenos Aires. Some saw this as a sign she might one day pursue a political path. Others now point to it as an early move toward mastering the art of public narrative and branding. But her real entry into the public eye came not through diplomacy or activism, but as a model on Deal or No Deal, the hit game show where she held briefcase number 24. It was the kind of job many aspiring actresses took to stay afloat, but Meghan, even then, seemed aware of how it looked. In a later interview, she said, "I was thankful for the job, but not for how it made me feel. I would end up going home and feeling embarrassed." This statement revealed a desire to be known for more than just her looks, but at the time, looks were often what got her in the room. From 2006 through 2011, Meghan bounced between small acting roles, often cast as the hot girl or sassy assistant. She appeared in a few mainstream films: Remember Me, Get Him to the Greek, and made cameos in shows like Fringe and CSI. None of these roles changed her life, but they kept her moving, and slowly, she began building a network. One of the turning points in her career came with the legal drama Suits, which premiered in 2011. Meghan played paralegal Rachel Zane, a role that gave her steady income, international visibility, and a dedicated fan base. Set in a sleek version of New York City, though filmed in Toronto, the show portrayed Meghan as polished, intelligent, and emotionally complex. She was finally able to step beyond the one-dimensional roles she'd played before. But behind the scenes, Meghan was already curating more than just a character. She started a lifestyle blog, The Tig, in 2014, branding herself as a woman of taste, intellect, and international awareness. She wrote about food, travel, mindfulness, and social causes, all with the confident tone of someone aiming not just to entertain, but to influence. This blog marked a crucial moment in Meghan's evolution. She wasn't content being an actress. She wanted to be a voice, an expert, a brand. And this is where the story takes a subtle shift. Because at the same time the Tig was rising, so too were Meghan's personal connections. She was frequently spotted at celebrity events, fashion shows, and charity galas. Insiders say she was intentional about who she met, who she followed up with, and how she positioned herself. She wasn't loud or flashy, but she was precise. Several sources have claimed that Meghan actively sought out friendships with people who could elevate her image. She connected with celebrity stylists, fashion photographers, and publicists. She developed ties with figures in British society, including Misha Nano, the designer often credited with introducing her to Prince Harry. There were also claims, some from former acquaintances, that Meghan pursued relationships with wealthy and connected men prior to meeting Harry, though none of these stories have ever been formally confirmed. What is clear, however, is that Meghan was increasingly operating in spaces far above her pay grade. Yacht trips, Monaco galas, and luxury vacations began dotting her social media. She was seen with friends who had access to elite circles. A few of her photos sparked online debates. Was she vacationing with friends, or was she being invited as part of a social arrangement? The ambiguity of those years has led to endless speculation. Meghan has never confirmed any association with yacht girl culture or anything remotely like it. But critics point out that her rapid ascent, particularly after years of moderate success, coincided with a carefully managed public image and a sudden proximity to global elites. Then, in 2016, came the moment that changed everything, the meeting with Prince Harry. Depending on who you ask, it was either love at first sight or a strategic meeting arranged by intermediaries who saw Meghan as a perfect match for a modern royal narrative. Harry himself has said he was immediately struck by her confidence, beauty, and compassion. Meghan has stated that she didn't know much about the royal family before meeting him, though many find that claim hard to believe, especially given her blog's attention to culture, fashion, and social hierarchy. By the time the relationship went public, Meghan's transformation was nearly complete. The Tig was shut down. Her acting career was put on hold. She was no longer giving fashion interviews or attending red carpet parties. In their place were charity visits, human rights speeches, and carefully orchestrated press appearances. And yet, even then, the questions persisted. How did an American actress with a modest resume and a background in cable television become a duchess within 2 years? How did someone with no formal aristocratic background manage to win over a notoriously tight-knit institution like the British royal family, at least initially? Supporters say it was her natural charisma, humanitarian spirit, and shared values with Harry. Critics suggest it was something far more tactical, a long-term strategy that leveraged beauty, proximity, and narrative control to ascend the global ladder. This chapter in Meghan's life, the one before the crown, remains the most dissected, debated, and disputed. Part of the reason is that so many pieces are missing. Friends from those years either remain silent or speak cautiously. Her father, Thomas Markle, has repeatedly said Meghan changed once she became famous, claiming she was once grounded, but became obsessed with image and status. Her half-sister, Samantha Markle, has been even more vocal, accusing Meghan of being manipulative and calculated. Of course, familial tensions don't always reflect truth. Families fracture for many reasons, and Meghan has cited racism, media abuse, and mental health struggles as reasons she stepped away from both Hollywood and the palace. Still, the pattern is clear. A woman who learned early how to adapt, how to read a room, and how to control her image. A woman who worked hard, but also worked smart. A woman who understood the value of timing, connection, and self-presentation. Whether you believe she was merely a savvy actress or something more strategic depends largely on your lens. But what cannot be denied is that Meghan Markle's pre-royal years were far from ordinary. They were a calculated dance through an industry and a culture where image is everything, where opportunity often comes cloaked in privilege, and where the truth can be reshaped, reframed, and rebranded. And as we move forward in this story, we'll see how these formative years, and the questions they raised, played directly into the royal narrative that followed. Because when someone enters the House of Windsor, they don't just bring their suitcase. They bring their entire past. And for Meghan Markle, that past is now under more scrutiny than ever before. The moment Meghan Markle stepped into the international spotlight as Prince Harry's girlfriend in 2016, something shifted, not just within the royal family, but in the global media machine. Almost overnight, the narrative changed. She wasn't just an actress anymore. She became a symbol, a fascination, and to some, a threat. And with that shift came not just admiration and curiosity, but a barrage of rumors. Chief among them, whispers that she had once been part of what's commonly referred to as yacht girl culture. These weren't mainstream headlines at first. The accusations started subtly, buried in online forums, murmured through social media threads, and shared anonymously in entertainment blogs. But the consistency of the narrative was notable. Multiple unverified accounts, all telling eerily similar stories. Meghan had spent time in elite circles before meeting Harry. She had been invited to private yachts owned by billionaires, and she had socialized with men known for surrounding themselves with aspiring actresses and models. The first spark appears to have come from an anonymous online post in late 2016, shortly after the relationship became public. The post, shared on a lesser-known entertainment gossip site, claimed Meghan was frequently seen aboard private yachts in the Mediterranean between 2011 and 2014. It even alleged that she had been introduced to some of the region's most powerful men, Saudi princes, European industrialists, and entertainment moguls, through connections made in the fashion and modeling world. The post didn't name specific individuals or offer concrete evidence, but the claims circulated quickly. Soon, tabloids and gossip columns began hinting at a hidden past Meghan didn't want revealed. Photos began resurfacing. Meghan posing on boats, attending exclusive beach parties, sipping cocktails on sun-drenched decks with unnamed guests. None of the images were scandalous in isolation, but when placed in the context of yacht culture, they suddenly seemed suggestive. Then came whispers from Hollywood. A few ex-colleagues, speaking off the record, hinted that Meghan had always been focused on climbing the ladder, not through traditional auditions or acting classes, but through strategic relationships. One source said, she was charming, no doubt. But Meghan knew how to be in the right place at the right time with the right people. She was building her brand long before anyone knew who she was. What amplified the allegations was how little was publicly known about that chapter of her life. Meghan had carefully managed her image from the start. When she launched the TIG, her now-defunct lifestyle blog, it painted a picture of someone cultured, intellectual, and world-savvy. But it was vague on details. She often referenced travel but rarely explained how it was funded or who accompanied her. For those already skeptical, this lack of specificity only added fuel to the fire. And then, as her relationship with Prince Harry progressed, the rumors intensified. In 2017, British tabloid reporters began digging. Some reached out to yacht brokers in Monaco and Mykonos. Others attempted to interview former assistants, club promoters, and socialites who might have crossed paths with Meghan during her early years in the spotlight. Few spoke on record. Fewer still offered anything conclusive. But the direction of the investigation was clear. Editors believed there was a story, and they were hunting it. This is when Meghan's legal team began to push back hard. According to several UK outlets, Meghan's lawyers threatened lawsuits against multiple publications that planned to publish speculative pieces on her alleged connections to yacht circles. Editors were warned that pursuing such stories could be seen as defamatory, especially given Meghan's status as a public figure engaged to a royal. Many outlets backed down. Articles were pulled. Blog posts disappeared. And just like that, the trail went cold, at least on the surface. But the internet doesn't forget. Even as mainstream media retreated, the allegations lived on in digital footprints, YouTube videos, message boards, and podcasts all revisited the claims. Independent researchers and royal watchers began compiling timelines of Meghan's travel history, social connections, and career moves. Some pointed out the odd coincidence that many of Meghan's vacations overlapped with yacht-heavy events in Europe. Others noted how quickly she was able to network with ultra-wealthy individuals despite having only moderate fame. Adding another layer to the controversy were comments from royal biographers like Lady Colin Campbell and Tom Bower. While neither directly accused Meghan of being a yacht girl, both made cryptic statements about her past. Lady Colin, in particular, suggested Meghan had studied her way into the royal family with intention, describing her as someone deeply aware of how to maneuver in elite circles. Tom Bower, meanwhile, alluded to Meghan's early years as being filled with strategic alliances that helped her gain access to higher social tiers. Their books and interviews became lightning rods, praised by critics of Meghan and condemned by her defenders. Then, in 2019, a more direct accusation came from a Canadian-based gossip columnist who claimed to have seen documents linking Meghan to a private modeling agency that specialized in luxury companionship for exclusive clients. The column was swiftly discredited due to lack of proof, and Meghan's team denied any such involvement. Still, the damage was done. The seed had already been planted in the public consciousness. At the core of these allegations lies one uncomfortable truth. They've never been conclusively proven, but they've also never fully gone away. And when Prince Andrew allegedly invoked the phrase "real yacht girl" in private conversation, the rumors exploded once more. Unlike anonymous bloggers or gossip columnists, Andrew carried a strange kind of credibility, however problematic. He had spent years traveling in elite circles, aboard yachts with notorious figures like Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. He knew that world intimately. For him to use that specific phrase, knowing full well the baggage it carried, was not an accident. It was a loaded accusation from someone who had lived in the underbelly of luxury and excess. This alleged comment breathed new life into the yacht girl theory. It prompted journalists and researchers to revisit long-ignored leads. It emboldened critics of Meghan, who saw Andrew's words as confirmation of what they had always suspected. It reignited debate within royal circles about what was truly known, internally about Meghan's past. But it also raised questions of motive. Why would Andrew, of all people, make such a claim? Was he lashing out in bitterness, trying to deflect attention from his own scandals? Was he resentful of Meghan's influence, particularly after she and Harry publicly distanced themselves from the royal family and even commented indirectly on royal misconduct? Or was it something else? Some believe Andrew's comments weren't meant to expose, but to warn. That he was signaling to insiders that Meghan's past was dangerous, not because it was criminal, but because it threatened to unravel the delicate image the royal family had worked so hard to preserve. If Meghan's rise could be tied to elite circles beyond the traditional channels, it would raise uncomfortable questions about who really gets to wear a crown and why. As we move forward in this exposé, the question remains: how much of the yacht girl narrative is truth, and how much is projection? Is Meghan Markle a victim of misogynistic rumor-mongering, or is she a master strategist who climbed the world's most guarded social ladder by understanding and playing the game better than anyone? The answers, as we'll explore in the chapters to come, lie somewhere in the spaces between whispered conversations, carefully scrubbed social media posts, and the conflicting accounts of those who claim to know the real story. It was never supposed to become public. The room was private. The gathering, exclusive. There were no cameras, no official press, no public statements planned. It was one of those rare moments when the walls of royal formality came down, and behind closed doors, members of the monarchy, those still active and those long exiled, spoke freely, away from scrutiny. Or so they believed. In this rare moment of royal candor, one voice reportedly rose above the rest with a comment so blistering, so deliberate, that it sent shockwaves through everyone present. Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, already deeply disgraced by years of scandal, was said to have leaned in and declared with an unmistakable tone of judgment, "She's got the nature of a real yacht girl." He didn't whisper it. He didn't backtrack. The phrase, it said, hung in the air like a spark over gasoline. To those unfamiliar with the subtext, it might have seemed like a crude insult. But to insiders, those who knew Andrew's history, his world, his familiarity with the coded language of aristocratic power and elite indulgence, it was more than an insult. It was a calculated categorization. But why would Andrew make such a statement? And why, after years of silence, would he risk adding fuel to the already raging fire around Meghan Markle? To answer that, we need to understand Andrew's world, his mindset, and the deteriorating role he plays within the monarchy. Prince Andrew is not a man accustomed to irrelevance. The second son of Queen Elizabeth II, he once held prestigious military honors, represented the crown on global trade missions, and was often favored by his late mother for his loyalty and charm. But all of that came crashing down when his close relationship with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein surfaced in the late 2010s. The fallout was swift and brutal. His now infamous BBC Newsnight interview, intended to clear his name, only intensified the backlash. Within months, he was stripped of his patronages, stepped back from public duties, and became something of a royal pariah. By the time Harry and Meghan exited the royal family, Andrew was already in the shadows. But while his public profile diminished, sources suggest he remained deeply involved behind the scenes, clinging to whatever influence he could preserve. Privately, he continued to socialize with high-level aristocrats, wealthy allies, and even some in the royal household who had not entirely abandoned him. It was within this private world that the controversial comment about Meghan was reportedly made. According to palace insiders and a former royal staffer who spoke under condition of anonymity, the comment came during a post-event gathering in early 2023. The occasion was informal, the attendees few. Meghan and Harry's latest appearance in the U.S. had sparked heated debate within the family once again. Some expressed frustration at the couple's continued media presence despite their departure from royal duties. Others questioned the palace's silence on their behavior. And then Andrew spoke. With his glass in hand, he reportedly muttered, "She's got the nature of a real yacht girl. Always fishing, always watching, always calculating." Eyewitnesses say the comment was met with awkward silence, followed by forced laughter from a few who assumed it was a joke. But others were stunned, especially by how pointed and personal it felt. He wasn't just talking about Meghan's ambition. He was referencing a very specific archetype, the kind of woman he had seen many times before in his years aboard yachts in the Mediterranean. Women who mingled with billionaires, charmed politicians, and leveraged every conversation into an opportunity. One attendee, who later leaked the details to a journalist, noted that Andrew didn't say Meghan was a yacht girl. He said she had the nature of one. That subtle phrasing was important. It offered plausible deniability while still cutting deep. It framed Meghan not as someone with a questionable past, but as someone who embodied the tactics and temperament associated with transactional social climbing. That same insider claimed Andrew went on to say, "She's not royalty. She's a brand. And brands don't marry into the firm, they consume it." Again, this wasn't a public speech or recorded interview. These were unguarded remarks, made in private among people who Andrew assumed were loyal. But in today's world, privacy is always relative, especially in the royal orbit. What makes Andrew's comments even more incendiary is the source himself. If they had come from a distant cousin or minor royal figure, they might have been dismissed. But Andrew's past connects him to the very culture he accused Meghan of mirroring. During the late 1990s and early 2000s, Andrew was frequently photographed with young models and actresses aboard yachts belonging to some of the world's wealthiest men. His association with Epstein wasn't just a passing friendship. It included invitations to private islands, parties filled with women decades his junior, and financial gifts exchanged under questionable circumstances. He was nicknamed Air Miles Andy for his constant international jet-setting and association with lavish lifestyles. It's because of this proximity that Andrew's words hit a strange nerve. On the one hand, he might be the most qualified to recognize certain behavioral patterns. On the other, he's arguably the last person who should be speaking about morality or reputation. His critics were quick to point this out. After the alleged comments surfaced through whispers and leaks, several figures in the press and public life called him out for hypocrisy. One royal correspondent remarked, "It's astonishing that Prince Andrew of all people feels he can critique anyone's reputation. He spent years trying to scrub his own." Still, others speculated that Andrew's comment wasn't purely about Meghan. Some believe it was a strategic move, an attempt to reinsert himself into royal relevancy by becoming a truth-teller, someone who dares say what others only think. In doing so, he might win back the favor of certain conservative factions within the family who see Meghan as a threat to tradition. There's also the possibility that Andrew sees himself as a victim of media manipulation and believes Meghan is playing the same game that ultimately led to his downfall. Perhaps he views her success in controlling public narrative with envy or resentment. After all, while Andrew's scandals buried him, Meghan's controversies have often seemed to fuel her media power, making her more famous, not less. And this dynamic, according to some insiders, deeply irritates him. He thinks Meghan gets away with things he never could, one former royal aide confided. That's part of why he lashes out. It's not just about her. It's about what her success reminds him of, his own failure. But not everyone in the royal family was appalled by Andrew's comment. Some allegedly nodded in agreement, quietly affirming the sentiment even if they wouldn't say it themselves. One courtier claimed that behind closed doors, skepticism about Meghan's intentions has always existed, and Andrew merely vocalized what many were too cautious to admit. Others, particularly younger royals, were reportedly disturbed. Prince William, known for maintaining decorum, was said to be furious when he heard about the comment. Whether his anger was due to the content or the recklessness of the leak remains unclear. Prince Harry, on the other hand, has never directly addressed the insult. But sources say he was devastated when he learned about it, and not just because it came from Andrew, but because it reignited the kind of racial and class-based criticisms that had haunted Meghan since the beginning of their courtship. What makes this situation more volatile is the context in which Andrew made his alleged statement. It wasn't a calculated interview or a planned speech. It was a moment of unguarded honesty or perhaps unfiltered disdain. And that makes it harder to ignore. Because if Andrew truly believes what he said, if he sees Meghan not as a royal consort, but as a manipulative outsider whose ambition rivals his own past indulgences, it signals a deeper fracture within the family. A family that is already struggling to maintain unity, dignity, and relevance in an era where leaks move faster than press releases, and perception often matters more than fact. As this chapter closes, one thing is clear. Andrew's private words have become a very public problem. For Meghan, for Harry, and for a royal institution that continues to grapple with the consequences of its most controversial members. The name Jeffrey Epstein cast a long, poisonous shadow. Even after his death in 2019, his web of connections continues to snare the rich, the powerful, and the famous. From Wall Street to Buckingham Palace, his trail left behind unsettling truths and unanswered questions. So when whispers emerged tying Meghan Markle, however loosely, to Epstein's elite social circles, it sparked a dangerous firestorm of speculation. Let's be clear from the beginning. No direct evidence has surfaced that places Meghan Markle in Epstein's infamous inner circle. She has never been photographed with him, mentioned in his flight logs, or formally linked to the more damning operations associated with his name. But in the world of power, prestige, and PR, connections don't have to be direct to be controversial. In some cases, it's the degrees of separation and the patterns that raise eyebrows. The theory that Meghan may have floated on the periphery of Epstein's social orbit first emerged after the release of several photos dating back to her early career, showing her at parties and yacht gatherings with known associates of Epstein. Again, these were not scandalous images. They didn't show criminal activity or suggest wrongdoing. But for critics of Meghan, they presented a familiar pattern, one where the path to influence intersected with individuals of dubious reputations. One such figure was a European entertainment investor known for hosting lavish Mediterranean parties, often attended by models, actresses, and politicians. Meghan reportedly attended 2 of his summer events, once in Monaco and again in the south of France, according to photo metadata from the early 2010s. The same investor had been linked by multiple journalists to Epstein, primarily through business arrangements and overlapping guest lists. Though no allegations were ever made regarding Meghan's behavior at these events, skeptics noted the connection as further evidence that she had maneuvered through the same social networks that enabled Epstein's empire of secrecy. There's also the matter of mutual acquaintances. Meghan's early access to high society in Toronto, while working on Suits, coincided with a boom in luxury real estate investments by foreign elites, many of whom had ties to figures in Epstein's business circles. Reports at the time linked several of these wealthy clients to modeling agencies used as recruitment fronts for yacht girls and party companions. Meghan, according to former partygoers, was regularly invited to events where such elites were present. Of course, being invited to a party does not imply complicity or even interest. Hollywood and high society often blur the lines between professional networking and social ambition. But in the post-Epstein era, every interaction with that world is now scrutinized under a different lens. What complicates things further is the presence of Ghislaine Maxwell in these same social ecosystems. Maxwell, a British socialite and Epstein's longtime companion, was a fixture at art galas, fashion shows, and philanthropic fundraisers across Europe and North America. She was known to maintain ties with high-end modeling agencies, fashion photographers, and film industry insiders. Some royal watchers claim Meghan and Maxwell may have attended the same events in London and New York between 2013 and 2015. While there are no known photographs of the two together, records from one fashion gala list them both as invited guests. Critics seized on this as a potential point of proximity. Others dismissed it as guilt by association, noting that many celebrities, far more high-profile than Meghan at the time, crossed paths with Maxwell without knowing the extent of her role in Epstein's crimes. Still, the theory persisted. Online researchers began mapping social graphs of the elite circles both women moved in, creating timelines of events, overlapping charity functions, and notable figures who appeared again and again. One chart, widely circulated on social media, highlighted a string of philanthropic events, fashion industry parties, and luxury retreats where Meghan, Maxwell, and Epstein associates either attended or sponsored activities. None of this was proof. But in the world of conspiracy and curiosity, patterns often speak louder than documentation. Another layer to the theory revolves around Meghan's ties to Soho House, a members-only club network popular with young creatives, entrepreneurs, and influencers. Meghan herself has credited Soho House as a place that helped her find community during her time in Toronto. It was also through Soho House connections that she reportedly met several of Harry's friends and ultimately was introduced to him. Soho House has faced criticism in the past for its exclusivity and for harboring elite cliques that blur the lines between business, pleasure, and privacy. Some outlets noted that several high-profile Epstein associates were also members or guests of the club at various points in time. While this isn't unique to Soho House, many elite spaces are frequented by controversial figures. It added yet another thread to the narrative. Beyond events and associations, another facet of the theory focuses on Meghan's meticulous PR strategy. Critics argue that the aggressive scrubbing of her past, removal of social media posts, deletion of the TIG, and the general vagueness around her early years suggest an effort to erase potentially compromising relationships or appearances. Supporters say it's simply a natural response to entering the royal family, where discretion is required and public life becomes a constant battle against intrusion. Still, the gaps in her story leave room for interpretation, and in the vacuum of hard facts, suspicion flourishes. Some commentators, especially those with ties to anti-Meghan narratives, argue that Epstein's world wasn't built solely on sex trafficking and abuse. It also thrived on media manipulation, reputation laundering, and elite gatekeeping. They argue that many women who passed through that ecosystem were never involved in criminal acts, but were part of a transactional culture where access was everything. It was about being seen, about aligning with powerful men, about getting on the yacht, figuratively or literally. And in that world, Meghan's story fits uncomfortably well. An ambitious woman, hungry for influence, who climbed steadily through the ranks of the entertainment and fashion industries, aligning herself with gatekeepers and eventually securing the ultimate prize, a royal title. This line of reasoning suggests that the issue isn't whether Meghan was tied directly to Epstein, but whether she came from the same social world that allowed men like him to operate with impunity. A world where young women's beauty and ambition are currency. A world where public image is a shield and secrets are currency. Of course, no serious investigation has linked Meghan to any wrongdoing. She has never been questioned, never accused, and never even mentioned in court records related to Epstein or Maxwell. That distinction is critical. Still, the persistence of these theories has a cumulative effect. It changes how people perceive Meghan, not necessarily as criminal, but as cunning. Not as a victim, but as a player in a larger game. And when someone like Prince Andrew allegedly uses a term like real yacht girl, it suggests that inside royal walls, there's more skepticism than they publicly admit. That skepticism might be based on loose associations, coincidences, or snobbish disdain for outsiders. But it might also be rooted in private knowledge, information the public doesn't have access to. After all, the royal family has always employed private investigators, vetted backgrounds, and protected its image through knowledge and surveillance. If Andrew made such a claim, it's possible he wasn't just speaking out of spite. He may have been drawing from conversations never meant to leave the palace halls. So what does this all amount to? A tangle of theories, indirect links, whispers from elite gatherings, and digital footprints that raise more questions than answers. Is it fair? Maybe not. But in the world Meghan willingly stepped into a world built on perception, lineage, and image, fairness often takes a backseat to optics. And the optics of Epstein's legacy have reshaped how the public interprets the movements of every person even remotely adjacent to him. Meghan's past, largely undocumented and deliberately curated, makes her an easy target for suspicion. She's both admired and resented for her ascent. To her defenders, she's a self-made woman who overcame systemic racism, classism, and misogyny to marry into the most powerful monarchy on earth. To her critics, she's a carefully constructed product of high society manipulation, someone who played the game better than anyone else, even if that meant swimming through the same waters Epstein once navigated. This chapter of Meghan's life may never be fully explained. The truth, if it exists, is locked behind layers of private conversations, untraceable invitations, and erased digital trails. But as long as those connections remain visible, even faintly, the theory lives on. Because in the world of royal intrigue, perception is power. And within the grand corridors of Buckingham Palace and behind the fortified gates of Windsor Castle, silence has always been the preferred weapon. When rumors arise, the royal family's strategy is rarely to engage directly. Rather, they let time dull the sharp edges of controversy. But in this case, when Prince Andrew's alleged comments about Meghan Markle as a real yacht girl began echoing beyond palace walls and into the global media stream, silence became harder to maintain. Reactions within the royal institution, though never publicly coordinated, rippled quietly, and in some cases, visibly, throughout the monarchy's ranks. At the heart of this response was a mix of private unease, strategic distancing, and whispered confirmation that, yes, the internal harmony had once again been shattered. According to multiple insiders close to the palace, Prince William was among the first to respond when he heard of Andrew's alleged statement. Though the Duke of Cambridge has always tried to steer clear of direct engagement with tabloid controversy, this time was different. Sources report that William was livid not necessarily because of the content of the statement, but because of the implications it carried. In private, William has long advocated for preserving the dignity of the royal family, especially as it struggles to modernize its image in the 21st century. A reckless statement by Andrew, no matter how truthful or fabricated, was seen as deeply damaging to an already fragile royal reputation. One palace aide revealed that William viewed the comment as irresponsible and loaded with arrogance. To him, Andrew's past disqualified him from making moral judgments, especially in the public sphere. The leak of the comment also risked stoking public sympathy for Harry and Meghan. Precisely what William has tried to avoid by maintaining measured silence over their exit and subsequent media antics. Princess and the Princess Royal reportedly responded quite differently. Known for her blunt realism and strict adherence to duty, and has never been one for dramatic reactions. Yet according to a retired royal staff member, and was less shocked by what Andrew allegedly said, and more by the fact that it had been said out loud. She doesn't like Meghan, the source admitted. She's made that clear in private. But she believes in handling things within the family. Loose lips discussed her. And's long-standing skepticism toward Meghan is no secret among royal watchers. Stories have circulated for years suggesting she was one of the earliest voices within the family to caution Prince Harry about Meghan's agenda, describing her as someone who wanted the crown without understanding the weight. But even Anne, with her cool detachment and stoic demeanor, did not condone Andrew's blunt and damaging phrasing. Camilla, Queen Consort and wife to King Charles, reacted with icy resolve. According to two royal insiders, Camilla viewed the comment as deeply stupid and dangerous, not because it was necessarily wrong in her view, but because of the fallout it would bring. One courtier reported that Camilla was exhausted by the endless string of controversies engulfing the monarchy and believed Andrew's words would only give Meghan more ammunition. She told a confidant that Andrew had handed Meghan another PR victory on a silver platter, the source added. As for King Charles himself, his reaction was described as a mix of exasperation and resignation. He was reportedly informed of the situation in a private briefing and responded by shaking his head and muttering, "Not again." Charles has attempted to consolidate the monarchy's public face since the passing of Queen Elizabeth, and one of his key priorities has been minimizing distractions and scandals. The comment from Andrew, already persona non grata within the royal ranks, threatened that progress. Privately, Charles was said to have contacted his communications team to prepare for potential fallout. While he reportedly chose not to confront Andrew directly, sources say a message was conveyed through intermediaries reminding all family members of the importance of discretion and caution. This wasn't just about Meghan anymore. It was about the legacy of the crown. Meanwhile, Prince Edward, the quieter and often overlooked youngest sibling, reportedly remains silent. He's always maintained a degree of emotional and public detachment from royal drama, focusing more on his charity work and avoiding palace politics. However, one insider noted that even Edward expressed private frustration at Andrew's behavior, reportedly telling a staff member, "He never learns." But perhaps the most emotional reaction of all came from Prince Harry himself. While Harry and Andrew were never particularly close, divided by personality, age, and behavior, the comment hit Harry in a way few others could understand. According to a friend of the Duke of Sussex, Harry was furious, heartbroken, and confused all at once. "He doesn't trust Andrew," the friend said. "Never has." But hearing that comment broke something in him. It brought back all the attacks Meghan faced early on, except now they were coming from within. This emotional response, according to the same source, reignited Harry's anger toward the institution as a whole. In private, he reportedly questioned why the palace had always moved so quickly to protect Andrew from public scandal, yet allowed Meghan to be torn apart by the press with minimal interference. It wasn't just about one insult. For Harry, it symbolized the larger hypocrisy of the system he left behind. Meghan, for her part, was said to be devastated, but unsurprised. A friend close to her claimed she had long suspected that Andrew and some of the more senior royals looked down on her. But to hear such a targeted and degrading phrase, one that implied she had used her looks, charm, and body to climb the social ladder, cut deep. Meghan reportedly described the remark as disgusting and misogynistic, and she strongly considered making a public statement. Only after discussions with her PR team did she decide to remain silent, at least for the moment. That silence, however, was anything but passive. Within a week of the alleged quote being leaked, Meghan's team began re-engaging with several friendly media outlets, subtly reframing her narrative in the press. Op-eds and interviews started appearing that emphasized her charity work, her dignity, her strength in the face of racism and sexism. And though none mentioned Andrew by name, the messaging was clear. Meghan was above the fray, a woman of grace targeted by the bitter remnants of a broken monarchy. Outside the palace, the public's reaction was split, as expected. Meghan's supporters condemned Andrew, calling him hypocritical and predatory. Hashtags like #YachtGirlSmear and #ProtectMeghan trended online, while feminist commentators decried the resurfacing of outdated and sexist labels used to diminish powerful women. Meghan was praised for not responding directly, an act seen as both dignified and politically smart. On the other side, royal traditionalists and critics of the Sussexes latched onto the story as further validation of their skepticism. They argued that the royal family had bent over backwards to accommodate Meghan, only to be criticized and betrayed in return. To them, Andrew's comment wasn't an insult. It was a truth bomb, a window into what many royals likely believe but rarely say out loud. And through it all, the monarchy attempted to project calm. No official statements were issued. No royal denied or confirmed the comment. Behind the scenes, however, the impact was unmistakable. Trust within the family had eroded even further. The fractures that once ran beneath the surface were now visible and widening. This latest blow was a reminder that even after Harry and Meghan's departure, their shadows still loomed over the palace. And it underscored a more troubling truth, that the institution, already struggling to remain relevant, is also struggling to remain united. In an age where nothing stays private, and where every whisper becomes a headline, the royal family finds itself cornered. It can no longer rely on silence to contain scandal, nor can it rely on loyalty to shield its secrets. As we move forward, the fallout from Andrew's alleged remark continues to evolve, and the reactions from within the family, subtle, sharp, or silent, reveal just how fragile the royal facade has become. For Prince Harry, Defending Meghan Markle has become a defining part of his identity in the public eye. Since the earliest days of their relationship, he has stood guard, not just as a husband, but as a protector, an advocate, and, many would argue, a soldier against a system he once belonged to. But behind his vocal defenses, public statements, and lawsuits, sources close to him paint a more complex picture. One of a man caught between rage and regret, conviction and confusion. At the center of this internal struggle lies a simple but devastating truth. Harry has risked, and arguably lost, nearly everything for Meghan. His titles, his family relationships, his military affiliations, and even the affection of the British public. And yet, despite all that, he remains fiercely loyal. That loyalty, however, has begun to buckle under the weight of persistent